The following program is an original production of Link TV.
Do you ever have those sleepless nights where you're only half awake and the world seems to be shrinking, and you have this nagging feeling that all the things that you took for granted, your job, your livelihood, might get yanked away? Then suddenly an alarm goes off in your head. Outsourcing. Researchers project that between 3 to 6 million jobs could move overseas in the next decade. What are we going to do for a living? The dominant view from corporate leaders, economists, and politicians is that it will all work out. But not everyone agrees, especially those on the receiving end of outsourcing.
Global capital is going to do whatever it can do most cheaply anywhere around the world.
It's not raising standards as they promised us, it's slashing standards all across the world.
The blue-collar jobs are gone. Now they're working on the so-called white-collar jobs, and the middle class is being squeezed right out of existence.
This story is about some of the industries that have been hit the hardest by outsourcing, and the workers who have felt that loss. Think of it as a wake-up call, where the people who are worried will be the loudest voices in your ear.
We have the research, the industrial know-how, the technology, the capability, and we must sow these things like seeds for all mankind.
When I was growing up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, people in my neighborhood used to make things.
Every gear, shaft, and bearing must be where it should be when the tractor is...
And the companies that employed people like my dad used to make money by making things in America. Not anymore. First, they closed the steel mills and exported those jobs to Japan. Then, Korea. Then they told us that we could retrain for the new high-tech manufacturing that would grow our economy. Well, that didn't last long. In 1992, NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, was signed, and those jobs were shipped to Mexico. Information technology was supposed to provide the next employment boom, but that work can now be done cheaper in India. The next retraining drive was in medical technology, but many of those jobs are being done offshore too. Guess where your radiology report is now being read?
The idea that somehow jobs, the lowest skilled jobs will be replaced by higher skilled jobs, just no longer holds.
People who have a lot of skills and college education and good connections are benefited enormously by globalization. But then there's a very large and different group of people who no longer have manufacturing jobs, who no longer have middle-class jobs, who are losing their way in the economy.
Joe worked in a sugar plant on the Big Island of Hawaii. But sugar production and processing moved offshore.
It's so still. I miss the loud noise, the machines running, the cane getting washed, the chains clanking. It's like a part of you just stopped down.
Joe got a job in an appliance rental store.
It's hard trying to raise a family with half of what you make, you know. And my children are young, and I'm thinking, how am I going to go support them?
Well, who's going to wake me up at 10?
Teresa is a single mom with 4 kids. She lived in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and worked the night shift at one of the high-tech manufacturing firms that reinvigorated this former steel town. She liked the company and wanted to move up.
In the past, I worked in management. I was a supervisor, and I have my resume attached internally, so I'm kind of covered at both ends, in case anybody's looking.
She even went to night school and was finally promoted to supervisor. Teresa thought she had the high-tech job of the future. Then, her company shifted production overseas, laying off 7,000 workers. She had to move her family to Texas to find another high-tech job, but worries how long it will last.
You know, your mother told you to get a degree, a high-tech degree, or 10 years ago, you'd be safe. That was the wave of the future. And now all of a sudden there's tremendous insecurity in that particular labor market.
All right, you're ready now, Renee. Come on now.
What about Ben, a database administrator who lives with his family in Pleasanton, California? When Ben's company shipped work to India, he didn't just lose his job. He had to train his own replacement.
Can't blame her. I mean, she needs a job too, but it's just the thing that really irks me the most is, you know, why is their American dream more important than mine? So yeah, I get bitter about that.
Don't be shy.
Problem is, well, what do? Thought about getting retrained. Well, what do you get retrained for? That can't be outsourced. And then you're going to start at the bottom and work your way up. And I'm almost 50 years old. And there's a lot of people who've faced this thing over the years.
Economists, politicians, and corporate consultants all tell us that outsourcing is ultimately good for everybody. It's the raise all the boats theory. If we spread jobs around the world, everyone will ultimately benefit. Some workers in India say outsourcing is bringing new growth to their economy.
It's giving opportunities like people getting employment and all. So it's a good thing.
If you're getting a salary of around 12,000, 15,000, it's quite a big amount. But if for getting the same amount of labor in the US, you will have to pay a much higher price.
But other offshore workers face miserable working conditions. Mahmouda sews clothes for Walmart in Bangladesh. She earns 17 cents an hour.
The general working day is from 7:30 in the morning till 9:30 or 10:30 at night. At 3 a.m. we can sleep on the ground in the factory, but we have to start working again at 7:30 a.m. The whole month working night and day, and I just got one day off.
The American worker is now pitted against desperately poor people in the developing world in a race to the bottom, competing over who will accept the lowest wages, the least benefits, the most miserable living and working conditions.
I can't blame people for wanting a better life, but I blame our politicians for taking ours away. And it doesn't matter whether they're Republicans or Democrats right now. It doesn't matter. They're all doing the same thing. And we have no one to turn to.
What can the average citizen do about it? Well, there are ideas out there.
The problem is not China. The problem is not them. The problem is us.
All of the stakeholders in the global economy at some point are going to have to sit down and figure out how we regulate it.
Why can't we say to the companies, fine, bring your products in here, we'll buy them, but you're not going to bring them into the United States if they're made by children, period. You're not bringing them into the United States or selling them if they're made by forced labor. You're not bringing them to the United States if they were made by workers whose rights were violated.
I think that everybody has been lulled into that false notion that there's nothing we can do about it. And I think that's exactly what the corporations want us to believe. And I think that we have to start standing up, and I think we have to start speaking out.
Learn more about what you can do about outsourcing at www.linktv.org/outsourcing.